I'm getting this energy that someone is preparing to have a conversation with you. Someone is getting ready to speak, and staying silent has become harder than admitting what they feel. Let's see what this means. What is this conversation about? What are they finally ready to say? Ooh! Okay, the first card is the Two of Pentacles reversed, and immediately I'm getting someone who cannot keep balancing everything anymore. They have been placing their feelings for you in one space, their fear in another, and their responsibility somewhere else, acting as though none of these things affect each other. But they do. This person has been trying to manage the connection instead of facing it. It's like they told themselves they could think about you only when it felt safe, miss you only in private, and then return to normal without changing anything. That is no longer working. The Two of Pentacles reversed feels like emotional overload. Something inside them is slipping out of its controlled place. And I'm hearing, I cannot keep pretending this is small. Wait, because there is something deeper here. I feel like this person recognizes that you are not simply someone they are attracted to. You represent a real choice. You represent the kind of connection that would require honesty, consistency, and emotional presence. And that is why their walls became stronger when their feelings became deeper. Do you see what I mean? They were not protecting themselves from a casual connection. They were protecting themselves from the possibility that you could truly matter. They tried. They really tried to convince themselves that timing, distance, fear, or other priorities made this easier to ignore. But every attempt to reduce the connection only made them more aware of it. And this is the part they were not prepared for. I feel they now see you as someone who genuinely matches them. Not because everything is perfect, but because your energy reaches the parts of them they usually keep hidden. They cannot unfeel that. So this approaching conversation may begin with an explanation. Why they hesitated, why they became inconsistent, why they acted less affected than they were. But I do not think the explanation is the main revelation. Because underneath all of that, they are preparing to admit that choosing you would mean reorganizing their emotional world, and they may be ready to do it. And that readiness did not come easily. Because the next card is the Five of Wands reversed, and this feels like someone who is exhausted from fighting themselves. For a long time, they treated their feelings for you like an internal conflict they had to win. One part of them wanted to move closer, another part immediately searched for a reason to pull away. They wanted to be honest. But the moment honesty made them feel exposed, they returned to silence. Not because they felt nothing, because they felt too much. The Five of Wands reversed shows that this struggle has been happening beneath the surface. You may have only seen the distance, the mixed signals, or the sudden change in their behaviour. But internally this person has been arguing with every feeling you awakened in them. And I'm hearing, you made me want things I stopped allowing myself to want. That feels important. You may have awakened a desire for emotional safety. Partnership, a future that is not built around keeping everyone at a distance. And I feel like this person had buried those desires so deeply that they convinced themselves they no longer existed. Then you appeared, and suddenly they could imagine being known. They could imagine having someone beside them who understood what they were not saying. They could imagine choosing one person fully, instead of always leaving an escape route. But imagining it also showed them everything they could lose. Do you see what I mean? The closer they felt to you, the more vulnerable they became, and instead of admitting that vulnerability, they may have created conflict where there did not need to be any. They may have focused on differences, timing, complications, or small misunderstandings because those things gave them something external to blame. It was easier to say, "This is complicated," than to say, "This matters enough to scare me." Wait, because I feel like they understand that now. The Five of Wands reversed is the moment when someone no longer wants to keep fighting the connection. They are tired of resisting what they already know. They are tired of pretending distance is bringing them peace when it has only made them more aware of your absence. And their walls are beginning to fail, not because you forced them down, not because you chased an explanation out of them. Something changed. Something recently made this person realize that you may not remain where they left you. They may have felt your energy pull back. They may have noticed that you are no longer reaching, waiting, or making it easy for them to avoid the truth. And suddenly, losing you stopped feeling like a distant possibility. It started feeling real. So what happened? What did they see, hear, or feel that made them realize their silence could finally cost them this connection? The next card is the Eight of Pentacles reversed, and this feels like the moment they realized the connection was no longer going to keep holding itself together without effort from them. For a while, I think this person assumed your emotional presence would remain available, even if they were inconsistent, even if they disappeared into their own fears, even if they left things undefined. Some part of them believed you would still be there, not necessarily waiting in an obvious way, but still caring, still leaving the door slightly open, still feeling the connection strongly enough that they could return when they finally felt ready. And then, something shifted. The Eight of Pentacles reversed can represent effort being withdrawn from something that has become one-sided. Symbolically, it feels like you stopped carrying the emotional work they were avoiding. Maybe you stopped checking in. Maybe your responses changed. Maybe you set a boundary without making a dramatic announcement, and they felt the difference immediately. Because this person knows your energy. They know what it feels like when you are emotionally present with them, and I feel like recently they noticed that presence was no longer guaranteed. Wait, because I'm seeing them searching for confirmation. They may be checking for small signs that you still care. Replaying the last conversation. Looking at something you shared. Thinking about a moment when you were warmer, more open, or more available than you are now. And the silence is saying something to them. It is showing them that you can move forward. You can build a life that does not revolve around waiting for them to become emotionally ready. You can become stronger without becoming cold. You can still care and choose yourself at the same time. That is what frightened them. Do you see what I mean? They were afraid of commitment, but they had also become emotionally dependent on the idea that the connection would remain unfinished, because unfinished meant they had not truly lost you yet. But now, unfinished no longer feels safe. It feels like a door that may close, and I'm hearing, "I waited too long." This person may be realizing that avoiding the conversation has not protected them from an outcome, it has been creating one. So now they are rehearsing. They are thinking about how to begin, how to explain the silence without sounding careless, how to admit that they noticed you pulling away, how to tell you that your absence affected them more than they expected. But the words forming in their mind are not only, "I miss you," that would be easier. This confession is more serious than that, because what they are preparing to admit may change the entire meaning of everything that happened between you. So, what are they truly getting ready to tell you? The next card is the Six of Wands reversed, and this feels like someone who has been trying to appear unaffected, because admitting the truth would mean admitting that you changed them. They may want to tell you, "I did not know how to handle what this became." Because I do not think they expected the connection to reach this deeply. They may have assumed they could step away, regain control, and eventually feel the way they did before meeting you. But they could not. Every attempt to move forward became a comparison. They may have met other people, distracted themselves, focused on responsibilities, or tried to convince themselves that what they felt with you could be found somewhere easier. And something was always missing. The Six of Wands reversed can symbolize the fear of being seen without the confident image someone has worked hard to maintain. This person may be used to appearing in control. They may be comfortable when they can decide how much of themselves another person receives. But with you, that control started slipping, and I'm hearing, "You saw what I was trying to hide." Wait, because the confession also feels like accountability. They know it was unfair to expect you to remain emotionally connected while giving you uncertainty. They know they may have wanted loyalty from you without offering the security that loyalty requires. They may be preparing to admit, "I wanted you close, but I was afraid to let you know how much I needed that closeness." Do you see what I mean? Their inconsistency was not accidental, it was self-protection. They moved toward you when missing you became too strong, and then moved away when closeness made the consequences feel real. But that pattern hurt you, and I feel like they know that now. This person is not only preparing to say that they still have feelings, they are preparing to tell you that the connection changed the way they understand partnership. You showed them that being with someone fully would require more than attraction. It would require emotional honesty. The willingness to remain present when vulnerability becomes uncomfortable. You are not simply another option. You became simply who showed them what they were not yet ready to offer. And that is why this conversation feels so difficult. Because they are not only afraid that you might reject them, they are afraid you will listen to their explanation and recognize every place where fear can be controlled. They are afraid you will see that beneath the distance, the silence, and the appearance of confidence, they were deeply affected the entire time. They are afraid you will see through them completely. And what exactly are they afraid you will find? The next card is the Sun. And this is interesting because the Sun exposes what has been hidden. It does not force anything. It simply makes it impossible to keep pretending that darkness is the full story. I feel like this person is afraid that when you look at them, you do not only see the version they present, you see the control, the pride, the moments when they pull away before anyone can ask them to stay. But you also see who they could become, and that may be even more confronting, because you reflect a version of them that is open, honest, emotionally present. A version of them that does not have to protect every feeling or turn vulnerability into distance. The Sun feels like clarity here. You may have shown this person what connection could feel like without constant guessing, without games, without one person pretending not to care, while hoping the other person continues to prove that they do. And I'm hearing, you made it look possible. That is what they were not ready for. They may have told themselves that they were independent, that they did not need anyone too deeply, that keeping emotional distance was simply part of who they were. But with you, that story started to fall apart. Wait, because I feel like they may have blamed you for the discomfort your presence created. They may have convinced themselves that you expected too much, that you were moving too quickly, that the connection carried too much pressure. But were you truly asking for too much, or were you asking them to be clear? Do you see what I mean? You were not demanding perfection. You were asking them not to disappear every time the connection became real. You were asking for words to match behavior. You were asking to know whether you were building something, or simply remaining emotionally available while they decided what they could handle. And they may have called that pressure because clarity would have required a choice. This is where the divine match energy becomes important. It is not about two people fitting together without effort. It is about a connection that reveals what both people can no longer avoid. You reflected their potential, but you also reflected their patterns, their need for control, their fear of depending on someone, their difficulty receiving love without questioning it, their habit of retreating when something begins to matter, and now they understand something. You were never the source of the pressure. Their own truth was. So why is that truth becoming impossible for them to suppress now? The next card is the Tower, and this explains why the pressure feels so intense now. The Tower is what happens when something can no longer remain standing in the same form, not because everything is falling apart without meaning, but because the structure was built around avoidance. This person created a life where they could function without fully facing what they felt for you. They stayed busy. They focused on practical things. They may have entertained other connections or filled their time with distractions that required less emotional risk. But none of it replaced what they were avoiding. And I'm hearing, nothing is working anymore. That feels very clear. The distractions are not distracting them. The silence is not calming them. The distance is not making the connection feel smaller. Instead, everything seems to lead back to you. A conversation they overhear, a place they pass, a thought that arrives when they are finally alone. Even moments that should feel satisfying may be showing them how emotionally absent they have become from their own life. because pretending takes energy, and they are tired. The Tower symbolically feels like the collapse of the belief that they can wait forever without losing anything. They are beginning to understand that silence is not neutral. Silence is becoming a decision, and decisions have consequences. Do you see what I mean? Every day they do not speak, they are still choosing something. They are choosing distance, they are choosing uncertainty. They are allowing you to form conclusions without the truth they have been withholding. Wait, because there is a surprising reason they may still be hesitating. I do not think they are confused about how they feel anymore. I think they are questioning whether they still deserve access to you. They may be wondering, after everything I avoided, will they even believe me? Or, do I have the right to return now that they have started finding peace without me? That is different from fear of commitment. This is fear of consequence. They know they cannot approach you carelessly. They know an impulsive message sent during a moment of loneliness will not be enough. They know they cannot offer a few emotional words and then retreat behind the same walls again, because the Tower has already exposed what that pattern creates: loss. So this person is not only thinking about what to say, they are thinking about what must change before they say it. What can they offer that is real? What can they do differently? And how can they show you that this conversation is not simply another temporary opening before the walls go back up? The next card is the Ace of Cups reversed, and this feels like the answer. They know the problem was never only that they had feelings. The problem was that they kept containing those feelings until they came out as distance, confusion, and inconsistency. The Ace of Cups reversed can symbolize emotion that is present but not being expressed in a healthy way. Love that is felt privately but not offered clearly. Vulnerability that keeps turning inward because someone is afraid of what will happen if they let it be seen. And I feel like this person understands that they cannot return with more hidden emotion. They have to bring honesty. Real honesty. Not, I was busy. Not, I did not know what I wanted. Not an explanation that protects their image while leaving you with the same unanswered questions. They know they may have to tell you exactly where fear took over. Why they pulled away. Why they returned. Why they allowed you to question something they already felt strongly inside themselves. And I'm hearing, I owe you the truth, even if the truth does not give me the outcome I want. That feels different. Because genuine readiness is not only having the courage to confess, it is having the courage to remain present after the confession, to answer the difficult questions, to hear how their behaviour affected you without becoming defensive, to respect your boundaries without treating them as punishment. Do you see what I mean? This person may be rehearsing an apology, but I also feel like they are thinking about what they can actually propose. Not another vague promise to see what happens. Not another emotional moment with no direction afterward. Something clearer. A real conversation about what they want, what they are prepared to change, how consistency would look, how trust could be rebuilt slowly instead of demanded immediately. Wait, because they know you have changed too. You may no longer be willing to accept emotional intensity as proof of commitment. You may no longer hear beautiful words and automatically ignore the pattern that came before them. And they can feel that. The Ace of Cups reversed shows that emotion alone is not enough when it keeps spilling inward instead of becoming care, action, and presence. So yes, this person may approach sincerely, they may mean every word. But sincerity does not give them control over your response. They cannot decide that their readiness must become your acceptance. They cannot choose the timing of your forgiveness. They cannot assume the door is still open simply because they are finally prepared to knock. And that shifts the energy toward you, because when this conversation arrives, the most important question may not be whether they choose you. It may be whether you still choose them. And the next card is the Ten of Cups. This shifts the focus toward what you actually want now, because I do not feel like you are standing in the same place emotionally that you were when this person first became inconsistent. At that time, you may have been more willing to wait for clarity, more willing to interpret the silence, more willing to believe that if you remained patient enough, they would eventually feel safe enough to speak. But something changed in you too. The Ten of Cups symbolizes emotional fulfillment, but here it feels less like a fantasy and more like a standard. You know what peace feels like now. You know what it feels like to stop building your emotional life around someone else's hesitation. You may still care about this person. You may still feel the connection. But caring no longer means abandoning yourself to keep the door open. And I'm hearing, I need more than potential. That feels important, because you may have spent a long time seeing what this connection could become. Seeing who this person could be if they stopped running, seeing the future hidden underneath all the fear. But now you are looking at what is actually being offered. Do you see what I mean? You are less willing to decode mixed signals. Less willing to turn a small effort into a large promise. Less willing to accept emotional closeness without emotional responsibility. And this person can feel that change. Your energy is no longer saying, take all the time you need. It is saying, be honest when you arrive. That may be why they feel such urgency now. They know they cannot return with the same vague language, and expect the connection to resume exactly where they left it. But I do not feel like you need to punish them either. You can listen without making the conversation easy. You can care without immediately restoring access. You can receive an apology without deciding in that moment what the entire future will be. The Ten of Cups asks whether this connection can create real emotional security, not only intense emotion. Wait, because I feel like the conversation may begin in a very ordinary way. A simple message, a casual question, something that almost seems too small for everything they have been carrying. But underneath it, there is pressure. And once you respond, I feel like the careful beginning may not stay careful for long. Because what starts as, can we talk, may quickly become the moment this person finally says what they have been trying not to admit. So how does the conversation actually open? And what truth comes out once they realize you are truly listening? The next card is the Seven of Pentacles, and this feels like a conversation that begins carefully. They may reach out with something simple, a question, a small reference to the past, a message that gives them room to retreat if they sense that you are not open. But underneath that restraint, they have been thinking about this for a long time. The Seven of Pentacles symbolizes looking at what has been invested and asking what it has truly become, and I feel like this person has been reviewing the connection in that way. What did they build with you? What did they neglect? What could have grown if they had been more honest? At first, they may try to stay composed. They may explain the distance in a careful way. They may talk about timing, fear, or everything they were trying to manage. But I do not think they will be able to remain detached for long. Because once they realize you are listening, the real truth may start coming through. And I'm hearing, I never actually moved on. That feels very strong. They may admit that they tried, that they believed time would reduce what they felt, that they expected the connection to become a memory they could appreciate without needing to act on it, but it kept living inside them. Wait, because I feel like they may also acknowledge why they withdrew. Not because they did not see a future, because they did. And that future required a version of them they were not ready to become at the time. Do you see what I mean? You represented something lasting, something that could not be approached casually and then placed back on the shelf when it became uncomfortable. The Seven of Pentacles feels like them realizing they delayed because they were afraid of what real commitment would ask them to invest. Time, consistency, patience, emotional effort. And now they may be afraid that while they were deciding whether they were ready, you were learning how to live without them. That is where their composure may break. They may become more vulnerable than you have ever seen them, because they know this conversation may be their final opportunity to tell the truth before you close the door completely. They may say they are afraid of losing you. They may admit that choosing you once felt overwhelming, but losing you now feels worse. And that is the emotional climax here, not simply whether they confess, but whether what they are offering now is different from what they offered before. Because honesty can open the conversation, only change can carry it forward. So, what does this divine match connection truly mean if you are now the one deciding whether their actions are ready to meet their words? The next card is the Nine of Cups reversed, and this feels like the final message, because the Nine of Cups reversed asks whether getting what you once wanted would still satisfy you in the same way now. At one point, you may have wanted this person to finally admit everything. You may have imagined the relief of hearing that you were not wrong about the connection, that the distance did not mean indifference, that they felt it too. And I do feel that truth is trying to come forward, but your fulfillment cannot depend only on hearing it. That is important. Being someone's divine match does not mean you are meant to wait forever, while they decide whether they can meet you emotionally. It does not mean accepting inconsistency because the feelings underneath it are deep. And it does not mean forcing a connection into a future that only one person is prepared to build. The match is revealed by what the connection brings to the surface, and this connection has brought everything up. Their fear, their control, their desire for you, their habit of retreating when love asks them to become more honest, but it has also revealed you, your capacity to love deeply without losing yourself, your ability to recognize potential without confusing it with a promise, your willingness to remain open while still requiring clarity. Do you see what I mean? The Two of Pentacles reversed showed that they could not keep juggling the truth. The Tower showed that their old defenses were no longer stable. And now the Nine of Cups reversed shows that desire without emotional maturity will never be enough. They may want you, they may miss you, they may finally understand what this connection means. But now they have to show that understanding through sustained action. And I'm hearing, I cannot ask them to believe me if I keep behaving the same way. That is the threshold. They can step forward honestly, accept accountability, and allow their actions to support what they say. Or they can remain behind the walls and face the reality that you may continue forward without them. But you do not have to chase the answer anymore. You do not have to pull the confession out of them. You do not have to keep proving that the connection is worth choosing. The pressure has shifted. It now belongs to the person who avoided the truth. And I feel like that is why this conversation is coming closer, not because you forced the door open, because they can no longer live comfortably behind it.